really done really fantastic for herself. So Tami, just say hi, wave before we read your bio. I think your audio is off. Yeah, your audio is off.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Naledi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Perfect.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. I thought it might be just the two of us, and so it is.
No way. Awesome.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Tami. So I'm going to read Tami's bio, and then we'll kick off the session. Later on, we will give everybody an opportunity. Later on, we will give people an opportunity to do question and answers, right? So, okay, so Tami has over 13 years experience. She serves as an executive director with Rescura Fundamentals and provides unlisted investment services for clients across all alternative asset classes, such as private equity, infrastructure, and private debt. In this role, she provides assurance and advice to investors, yes, in alternative assets and alternative funds assets, including independent valuations, financial modeling, risk and performance reporting, and research. In her capacity as executive director, she is the training officer for the SICA accredited Rescura CA training program. Prior to joining Rescura in 2018, Tami was an executive director at Grassroots Capital, responsible for growing and monitoring the agri-finance company loan book. She has worked as a treasury and risk analyst and a financial controller at BP Southern Africa and Investec, respectively. She completed her articles at KPMG and joined Rescura in 2011. Tami's passion for business and corporate governance has led her to being appointed as an independent, non-executive director in asset management, printing, higher education, enterprise development, and ministerial appointee to 2 SOEs. She is also the chairman of CUNY, I hope I said that correctly, Tami, an enterprise development fund focused on funding tertiary students. So guys, that is a mouthful. She's very young. You'd think we're reading a profile of somebody who's 50 years old and she's only in her 30s.
Barely.
Yeah. So I'm really, really excited to have Tami. And Tami, thank you again for making yourself available. I know you're extremely busy, so we do appreciate you making yourself available for us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It always does sound like a mouthful. Yeah, it's been an incredible year in terms of realizing the amount of work I have put in, because I was just following my passion, right? And yeah, now it sounds very serious.
That's amazing. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, right, we'd just love to briefly hear of your journey in becoming a chartered accountant. So just tell us about, what were your high school years like up to getting to beginning your journey as an accountant, as a CA, pardon me.
Sure. So I went to the same school basically my whole life. I was one of, I think, the first 3 Black people there in 1991. That was a lot of fun in terms of adjustment. But, I went through the system and I did learn to enjoy knowledge. And I learned early on that I quite like structure. So we were privileged enough to have an art class, and it was my worst subject. I was like, what are we doing? What are we playing in Play-Doh? Like, so, I think I've always had a little inner accountant in me. And when I think it was a Felicia Mamuza show back in the 90s, I was watching with my mom, and they were talking at the time. And I remember at the time there was a big push for us to all study IT. And then the chartered accountant thing hit the mainstream with the parents. And she was like, okay, apparently it's only 10, you've got to join them. And I really, really enjoyed my accounting homework. Like I would leave it till last and just like enjoyed my balancing my debits and credits. So it was a natural. I was like, okay, solid goal. And a lot of things just went right from there, you know. Then I had to make sure that I focused on my marks and also I only wanted to go to UCT because as a child, I would go around that freeway and I couldn't figure out how to get on campus. So when you're a child, you don't know there's off-ramps. And I was like, what is this castle in the sky? I want to go there. And so I was obsessed with it. And I remember it was now matric in June. And I hadn't received my confirmation yet. And my mother was like, don't you think you want to apply somewhere else? I was like, it's UCT or nothing at all. Which scared her a bit, but she trusted me. So she didn't push. And a few weeks later, I did get my letter, which was a big sigh of relief. So then that's when my journey started properly. And because I loved accounting, I was one of the top students in it. We were chosen by our teacher to go visit KPMG. The auditors were also making a big push to attract young Black students into the CA stream. So we have a few of us from the Western Cape, made a few new friends. I'm not shy. One thing about me, I'm not shy. I went up to the lady. I was like, "Are you in charge of the bursaries? Do you have money for me?" And she was like, "Not at the moment. We only give money once you're in first year and we can see your marks." I was like, "Cool. That's fine. I'll be in contact." And then, and then I went off. And then a year later, I was on campus going about it, and I signed up. And unfortunately, just before campus started, my dad died. And then as we were getting into the May results, starting for, the last type of tests before exam season starts, I remember I was supposed to write a stats test that day on a Friday, and my mom died 5 months later. And I just thought, this is it, but also I'm very stubborn. So I was like, shoo, I'm not gonna be able to write this test, but I'll be able to maybe manage the exams. And I made a plan. I couldn't write the exams. I ended up deferring, which I think was the right choice. So at the end of the year, I wrote everything at once. And that went well. I passed first year by the skin of my teeth, but I made it. And I think what was important to me was to honor my parents' investment in me. I know what my mom dreamt for me. And I shared that dream, and I thought, you know what, this will give me something to focus on, not to just wallow in my grief. It's very easy. You could. And obviously you have other coping strategies, and you're a teenager at university, so you drink a lot and you party a lot with your friends, So I enjoyed my time at WASP. I have no regrets. I enjoyed the balance between trying to pass accounting with 60% each year to make it to the next year, and enjoy my life as a young woman. In third year, I didn't quite make it. I was a bit worried about funding. What I wanted to say about KPMG, about as I started first year, about February, the lady called me and she's like, "Oh, we have 12,000 Rand extra. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Yes, please."
So that you asked if there was funding.
Yeah, because you wouldn't know otherwise that I needed money. So I went and that will be a thread in my life where I'm not scared to go ask someone something. At most, they can say no, and my feelings will be hurt, but at least they know what I'm interested in. So, then I carried on third year, got masters, survived barely. And I didn't quite make third year because I needed to get a job. I worked at an Edcon call center. I was those people who call you to compare your account. Very uncomfortable job, but I met one of my best friends there, so not too bad. And I simply didn't make it at the end of the year. I think it was accounting. I didn't get the 60% you needed, so I had to repeat accounting, and I dropped one or two subjects, and I did the two just to get through. And then I made it to CTA, to UNISA, and then I had the normal challenges. CTA is tough as nails. I was doing it in my bedroom, and I was used to classes at UCT, but UNISA, you have to get up and study and open that thing they mailed you back in the day. It was a package that arrived at your door, and just work through it. And that was the first time I had to structure my time, and I got a lot of support from people who'd done it. I'd met some friends in the industry who were CAs, and they guided me. Do your past papers, just sit and prepare and act like it's an exam, mark yourself. And that allowed me to have first-time passes through all my board exams. So I finally, at the end of 2011, and I remember for board 2, there was we were two African girls in our year, myself and Namsha, and we were both like at the end of the line. Namsha didn't have a car at the time. She was working so hard. I was working so hard. When you're getting paid 5.5 and you must get to the audit, you must pay rent, you must, all the usual things. Whereas your counterparts, your more privileged counterparts, have people paying for their cars. There were people rocking up in Mercedes in the parking lot. It was it was a stark difference in our lifestyle and how important it was for both of us to make it. So board 1, we were like, yeah, we can do this. Board 2, I remember, because then they had a party. KPMG used to be at the foreshore as you look out at the waterfront in the harbor. They allow you to go home because you're so nervous. From 1 p.m., the office is empty of the trainees, of whoever's receiving their results. Some go out drinking, the partners will take you out. But I remember for the first board, I went drinking out with everyone. I was fairly confident. The second one, I was like, man, I can't do this. I need to be alone. So I was at home playing music in my underwear, wearing my high heels, waiting for Namsha's call. And I was like, she's almost brave enough to actually go to the office and find out for the both of us. So she calls. I was like, she's like, she started screaming. And I remember screaming in my underwear and his high heels. And my dress was right there. That was the last step. Makeup done. It was just get dressed. But if not, I was just going to get in my bed and, cover my face with a duvet. That's why I wasn't quite willing to get dressed. And that was the CA journey. It was tough, but it was fun and rewarding. I definitely still see the value in going through that process.
That route, yeah. So I mean, just with your, the journey that you've walked through, right? What's coming out to me, which is very, very clear, is somebody who was extremely determined, somebody who wasn't afraid to hear no. Very ambitious. You also had a very clear direction, right, as to I want to become an accountant, I want to become a CA. So from that moment, right, up to now, so you really have climbed to the, what we would say the top of the ladder. What was your plan from the time that you became a CA, to where you are now? Did you say, okay, I want to reach the top of my, of my career, or did, life take you as it were?
I wish I could say I've mapped it perfectly. The second half was shambles. I had gotten my CA. I hadn't quite figured out what I wanted to do with it, but I knew it opened a lot of doors, and it credentialized you into other industries you may not have access to automatically. So that was the point of getting the designation, and I floated around for a bit. So when I was right at the end of articles, I got a call. There was a small company looking for analysts to do unlisted valuations, which is the first time I came across Rescura. And at that point, the company was maybe about 50 people or so. In my department, we were 5. I think I was the 5th to join. And that's where I met one of my first, my post-audit mentors, Rory Ord, and we just chatted, So what we do is value investments in private equity, independent valuations for those investors. And he talked me through a couple of things. I came in to do the case study. I was nervous as hell. I hadn't looked at a DCF since management accounting, and I had to go study a few things again. But I made it through, and I got the job, and I joined Rescura, and that's where I learned about, they are general investment consultants. And at that time, we were just private equity focused. So I learned a lot about that industry, which at that point was very male and white. And when we went to the conferences, there were maybe 20% women, and then there'd only be 3 or 4, 5 at most, Black women in the room. And, after that, I did it for about 2 years. And then I was keen to go see what else is there in the industry. And while at Risker, I'd worked on an oil and gas valuation. And I was like, you know what? Oil and gas sounds like they have money. Let me go find out what happens over there. And then, and literally, I got a call from a headhunter. They're like, BP is looking for someone, a treasury analyst. Are you interested? I went off to the waterfront, interviewed, did all the assessments, and I got the offer. And I was, okay, cool. This is nice. It's a big international firm. I get to understand their processes, and it's similar to, it's still looking at treasury investments, managing loans and things like that. So I did that for another 2 years. And then at that point, I had a death of a very close family member. So I took some time off work because I realized I hadn't actually processed anything when everybody had died. And yeah, so I think after my mom died and then my brother died a year after that. So literally my whole family had died within 18 months. And I processed none of it. I was just like, this is your end result, go do that. And now I'd done it and a few things were kicking in and I really needed time to get to know myself and work through a lot of the stuff I didn't know was there. So I got someone to help me, and she's still a coach, I suppose. I just engage on an executive coaching level now. Chantal Opal, she's really an incredible, guide, I suppose. I wouldn't even say coach. So I did a lot of work with her while I was off for about 3-4 months. And when I went back to the market, I did a contract with Investec, doing a maternity cover, some reporting, sort of your FM financial manager work, which is where a lot of chartered accountants inevitably used to end up back in the day, because financial services posts are quite limited and they're network driven. So I was there for a bit. I was like, this is not quite for me, but it's good to know how you do it in real life, And at that point, I joined Grassroots Capital. I really had a choice I was interviewing with Merrill Lynch and then this Grassroots Capital, and my contract was up. And because I'd been off work for a while, I was feeling the financial pinch. I couldn't sit around for another month. So I needed to make my decision quite quickly. And I'd gone through like 3 rounds with Merrill Lynch, the guys in London, blah, 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 Joburg. And it was just their process, big firms, their process takes long. And then I think that was a reminder for me. I was like, oh, you don't actually enjoy really, really big firms because first of all, you do one thing. And then, it feels like government to me, I must say. Like it's like red tape. And I'd enjoy the flexibility of Risker and being able to work hard, but work on different projects. So that I think that has spoiled me for any sort of same work, because I valued different companies. I looked at different funds all the time. So I joined Grassroots Capital, and they are citrus farmers. At that point, I didn't even know South Africa was the second largest. It's either first or second, depending on the season, citrus exporter in the world. And I was like, what? Okay, so let me go find out about that. What's agriculture? And I learned that industry for a year, but went out to see the farms, managed treasury lines. They had a few lines from institutional investors and some of the government, sort of FIFA, those guys, and do the loan statements because we funded the underlying farmers. It was a very interesting look at how the land works, actually, and who are the players there. Very, very interesting. Didn't last long. The culture couldn't do it. Simply couldn't do it. So the culture is very male in agriculture, just as an industry. It's not even about the company itself. It's very male in Afrikaans, and I barely speak Afrikaans. I once got financials in Afrikaans. It was the first time. I had to Google every line to find out, So I learned a lot, but within a year, I just knew I'd sort of reached the end of the road. And then I packed up my car and I drove to Joburg to stay in my sister's spare bedroom for a few months, and enjoy the kids. And then I was on the market again. And this was just before, and this is, I think when we were just starting to go into an economic depression and there was calls for the former president to step down. We were going to go into NEC in December to do they CR70 and I remember, I don't forget I forget Nkosazana's hashtag. And at that point, you're looking for employment, and if nobody's hiring, there was a freeze in the country because they wanted to know what's going to happen. And I acutely felt it. But it was good to actually get to know my family well at that time, because I think I'd spent so much time working. And I started baking and doing like very domestic-y things. But I miss money. So eventually I was getting quite far with an educational listed company in Sandton. But again, I felt like, sure, I can feel the restraints coming around me, because at that point I started my board memberships. They were picking up and they were important to me. And I didn't want, at my last job, I'd had to lie about going to a board meeting. I was like, I've got a gynae apartment in the north,
Okay.
2 hours.
Okay. But let me stop you there and jump in, because we that's the meat, right, of the discussion.
Yeah.
The board port. So I would love for you to just tell us, like, what was your first board appointment and what were your expectations going into it?
So I started it as I joined Riskira, actually the first time as an analyst. When I left KPMG, one of my managers had recommended me. His friend was on the board and they were looking for a young CA to eventually take over the treasury role from him. And he was incredible. He ran his own asset management company. And that's when I understood that there's also, it might be voluntary, but there's lots to be learned here. Just the networking itself, how the industry works. And once I found out the SPCA was the oldest NGO in the country, I just had to get involved. So I met with a few of the board members. I went out to the SPCA. They took me around the grounds, and I was hooked. So once a month, whichever job I worked, as you guys have heard, I always made sure, I think it was Tuesdays or Thursday, by 3:30, I'm out of the freeway. I'm on the freeway all the way to Barkley Park to the SPCA. So it was that important to me. And I wasn't sure why. Some people were like, "Kumi, do you even like animals?" I was like, I like what they're doing. Like, it's important work, so I'm going to be a part of it. I don't have to be like the world's greatest animal lover, but I need to be able to support the organization. And it was incredible, really. And by the time I left, I had become the chair. But this is now when I'm moving to Joburg at the same time. So that's happening. And then a friend of mine from Articles gets in contact. He's an FM at an asset manager, Ways Asmal. He actually has a really cool platform on LinkedIn called Two Ways to Skin a Cat, which is, a play on words. And we become fast friends from then. It's like the founder of the asset manager now needed non-executives to join his business. So I was his first. We went out for lunch. And at that point, I was young. This was 2016. And I remember asking him, don't you think you want someone older, someone who might know what they're doing a bit better? Like, I've enjoyed SPCA, but, it's different type of work. And I kind of understand your industry. At Riskira, I'd done unlisted investments, and these were listed investments. So he was like, you know what? There's a lot of conflict in the industry, and I like the fact that you're young and you're motivated, and So he appointed me after meeting his team, and then after that, it was like a snowball. There was another. I think Rory's brother recommended me for some other stuff. I think that is a printing company. Also another company where they needed to start bringing in more non-execs. So these owner-managed founders just needed to improve their corporate governance at a point where I discovered that I really, really enjoyed it. So, those started coming in, and then, the asset managers, the first time I got paid for it, I could not believe it. I was so chuffed. And that's how it started. So then I joined, at that time, they were called RSA. They now have merged with the other media company. They're called RSA Shumani. Learned a lot about the printing business, how the margins work. And printing, media is hard copies is declining, and you can't not pretend it isn't. And it was tough to be part of the people who help try to keep a company that had so many people employed. But they still, COVID hit them quite hard. I'm no longer part of the board from about 2-3 months ago, because they've been bought out and they now go into a larger group structure. So, that was like eye-opening. So for me, I always like, what is that? I don't know anything about it. Maybe a way to learn is to go join them. And I think that curiosity and following a thread that might not seem logical at the time. Because now when you were asking first, did I plan it? I didn't. I didn't think that the board seats would lead to an executive position like at quite a young age. I was just doing it because I love it. And then
just to go back to the SPCA, right? What did you learn from that experience? Because you hadn't sat on the board before, you hadn't been trained as a director before. Like you said, you had no idea, right, what it entailed. So what did you learn from that particular experience, and particularly it being an NGO?
I learned that people work incredibly hard. Yeah, they're some of the most passionate people I've ever met. And because they're an NGO, you're not paid extravagant amounts. You're partly paid in passion. So that's one thing that stuck out with me. Those people, they fought for their animals, for their care, to give access to the surrounding community. They'd been at that spot for 100 years, and once in a while you get the break-ins, but the community actually protected the property because they understood how important it was to them. So I learned how to actually be an active citizen there, and use your own petrol to drive 30 kilometers once a month to go listen, to sit at this table where you're the only, at that point I think I was the only woman. But they were really lovely. A lot of them were vets, lawyers. I must say that's one table I was never intimidated. I was made to feel quite welcome, and they'd explained how the society works, and the validation in that is, I think I joined them in 2011, and in 2017 I left as the chair of the organization, and I was still the youngest at the table and the only Black woman.
And you say that it gave you a good footing. Starting at an NGO gave you a good footing to then move to a corporate-based board.
Yeah, because I knew inherently who's going to pay me to do this. Like I'm just a newly qualified chartered accountant. If I say, because I when it was during articles that I discovered what a board is, first of all, because you don't have uncles in industry to chat around it, when we had family events. So that's what I found out what it is. And I was like, that is interesting. Strategy, oversight, and, you get to look at it. I like always looking at a wide range of things. I'm a generalist, so I like to know a lot. And then I'll pick something for a year or two that I'm really, really interested in, to drill down there. And hopefully there's a new path. So that's how I really follow my instinct in that way. That was critical, because you learn the skills there and they need you, right? So when people ask how would you advise, I was like, listen, it's nothing pretty. you have to find an organization you're passionate about, go knock on their door. What's your skill? See if it fits any of their, their services. Because that was what inherently worked for me. Yeah.
That's excellent. And then you spoke about being passionate about corporate governance. And really just talk us through the importance, first of all, of being knowledgeable, right, of corporate governance. And then secondly, why you're so passionate about that.
It's grown in importance. When I started, I just wanted to learn how things work. I've always wanted to be in an executive position, but I just didn't see how it happened without going the CFO route. And I just felt like that's not what I wanted. I wasn't passionate about it. And I was going to feel it every single hour it took out of me. I was going to feel it. So that wasn't quite the strategy for me. But as we went on, and then I realized once I started getting a bit of paid opportunities, I realized that the banks are actually pushing the small owners to get their house in order. Do you have a non-executive on your board? Do you, is it just you and your friend? Is it you and your shareholder? Do you need somebody else who's not involved? So the banks actually pushed a lot to make sure that it's someone without a beneficial interest, to just keep an eye on things. And, when you step on as a director, it doesn't matter if you're paid or not. You can still be taken to court for your decisions or non-decisions, or what happened under your watch. So it's not something you do lightly. You have to be able to trust the executives you're working with. As we've seen in the media, what you're given as a board member could also end up being, a Steinhoff. So you have to protect yourself and do your own research and think about if this is the type of organization you want to be involved with long term. The same way they have to assess you for the same reputational risk. So that I found that journey worked out for me. And then as the world was realizing how important corporate governance is, I was already there. And that worked well in terms of just timing. And then at that point, I thought, you know what, I've got 2 or 3 now on my back belt. Board positions are actually advertised as jobs in the newspaper, especially for anything that's state owned. And I came over, it might even have been Asif, the owner of Aon Investment Managers, who sent me the ad and said, I think you should apply for this. He used to send me a lot. There was a PE commission. I applied for everything at that point. I spent a year just sending my CV everywhere. Sure. And then to my shock, somebody from the DTI called me and I was like, hello. And they're like, are you available for appointment for the chair of the takeover regulation panel and some senior members of the DTI because they're reporting to them? Like, sure. So I went and I did that in my car because, I was still, it wasn't something you could say in front of your colleagues during lunchtime, even though it's not real competition for them. So I did it and I got my appointment letter. I was super chuffed. So my appointment letter was then signed by, then was the former Minister of Trade of Industry, Minister Davies. And I just got a thrill. I couldn't believe that, and I had to go through that state security clearance, nervous as hell. And then, and then I heard nothing from them for about 2 months. And then I just got an email with the appointment letter. I was super chuffed. And I think that's where things really started taking off in terms of the maturity of my corporate governance experience.
Sure. That's really amazing. I mean, I have so many questions, and I'll also give a bit of time for everybody at the end. But I just really want to, just get into what would you say as now a skilled non-executive director, right? What are the skills that make an effective, excellent director for a board?
You have to prepare. So in the late 90s, when I started inspecting board minutes on audits, you'd realize absent, 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 present, present, absent, absent. And you could sometimes see it in the way the company was run, that, you know, people were just appointed and they weren't doing the work. So especially when I don't know an industry, I'll spend some time Googling it, finding out how it works, going through the financials I've been given. That's my strength. So I always put on my financial hat, and I'll go for the apps and the management account first, make sure I understand how the organization works, how they make their money, who they pay and why. So you get to know the trends in your head, how they budget. So that's my strength. That's what I bring to the board. That's why I'm usually appointed. But I've grown so much that I've now inherently developed a way of strategy, conflict resolution. You have to grow up at some point. At the takeover regulation panel, it's chaired by Mrs. Neo Dongwana, and she used to run one of the audit firms in Africa. I want to say Deloitte. She was a country head for Deloitte. And that is a powerhouse to consider your peer, to be able to sit there and consider your peer. And I've grown so much from, you know, that type of leadership. And then I got my letter, I joined TRP. At the same time, a friend was saying, you know, Riskura is in a busy season. Why don't you go see if, you know, they need you? So I did. And at that point, the lady who had joined as I was leaving, Helene, was running the department. So I dropped an email and I'm like, do you need help? I'm unemployed. Do you need help? She was like, oh my God, I will always need your help. And that's how I got my current job. So I did 3 months with them as a contractor. And we thought, and that time they were thinking of starting the CA training program. And I remember she was like, oh, we must do the training with the strategy session with the consultant. And I was like, what's that? Because at KPMG, I did train the trainer, and that was a way for me to travel the country and go give trainings. So I was like, okay, I love training stuff. You know, I love CA things. I was always been involved with SICA at some level since I qualified. I was like, no, let me do it. So that's how I became the training officer. And then I came in as a director, because as a training officer, you need to be a director of the business. And then we sort of ironed out my role. My first year was focusing on that, recruiting, staffing. So now I've got 8 trainees. I'm signing off my first 2 at the end of this year. And they trained in private equity and valuation, and I'm super excited about them. They're incredibly smart. Yeah, so that, and then I moved on to business development, you know, operations, and just making sure that things grind in the background while the guys churn out quality reports. So that's my day job at the moment. So as I joined TRP, then I'm joining with Riskura, and TRP is looking at regulated transactions. So I can feel like the alignment again in sort of my career and where I'm placed. I end up not taking the role in Stanton, and I go with Riskura contract, which is very risky because I didn't know if they were going to offer me a permanent. But I felt it, like I felt like this is where I can make more impact, and I will always appreciate flexibility.
Yeah. So then in terms of the right, so cool. So you've clearly stated very well, right, the skills it takes for being an effective director, right, which is research, do your research, especially if you're not familiar with that particular industry. Go and do as much inquiry as possible, get the financials. And I think that's a really great tip, particularly for people who are not CAs or chartered accountants. We have many non-financial, I'll call it that way, individuals in the membership. So I think that's a really fantastic tip to give. So as I've listened to your journey, I think your board journey has been quite organic. It really has been by recommendation. We know her, we know she's effective, let's put her on, etc. But then you do have individuals who maybe haven't had that level of exposure, and who've now realized, look, I've been working for 15 to 18 years. I've got so much experience and I'd love to add value to a board. Now they know nobody at that level. So what would you say, to them? How do I start networking at that level? Because we know that a lot of these nominations really go by, who you know.
Yeah, agreed. It's tough. I don't want to lie, Naledi. It's very much a who knows who. It's rare that it's advertised, and it's rare that you get the opportunity without some sort of experience. So even then, even if you're at the top of your career, I would still recommend going with an NGO, or your friends who have businesses. Ask them if you can help them with some of the corporate governance work. You're going to have to do it for free for a bit, just to get your credentials.
So you saying that you could have 20 years in corporate, but if you don't necessarily have board experience and you've never even gone the NGO route, it could play as a disadvantage to you.
Listen, then you have to know somebody there who's going to say, I back this person. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very rare. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. If you really specialize in your career, it's quite easy then to join board membership in that industry, because now you're an expert, right?
Sure.
So what's also a good thing is also your associations, your industry associations, depending on what your work is, getting in contact with them if they need, any corporate governance type of thing. So you can start thinking about the people in your life with easy access to, applying without the relevant experience is quite tough. And I'm sure you guys have a certification course. If it's something you're passionate about, then start there, get the academics first, and then help it with real, actual, practical experience that you have relevant, easy access to.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, interesting enough, the Directors Association does do that. So once you've completed your training, you've written exams, or anybody on the call, in fact, who hasn't joined, they then after that obviously evaluate you, and they actually put you on boards of small businesses just to really, kick off your experience as a board director. So I'm sure you know this, Tamimi, that's in terms of female board directors for listed companies in South Africa is alarming. It's 20%, right? I think that's completely shocking. And with your experience, what do you think is the primary reason for having such underrepresentation for females on boards, particularly listed boards?
It's a combination of the networks and the experience, and unfortunately. So what I realized then about 2 or 3 years ago is I'm going to need to professionalize this one way or the other, because I would love to get a listed board opportunity. But I'm not going to get that through my friends I did articles with. That's playing in a different game altogether. And I don't know any players there. So, and in my conferencing business development role, there was a gentleman, those people who have like 1 million letters behind their names. Sure. And what he was saying on stage was so incredible that I went back to his bio and I was like, what is a chartered director? What the hell is that? That sounds like something I should be. And that was 2 years ago. And I kind of dragged my feet for a year. And then, because I look, the certification process, you really can't just slip by. You have to know your stuff. You have to prove you've walked and you can talk the talk. So it took me a year just to even get the confidence. And in that year, actually, I think it was good to wait. I then got appointed the chairman of the audit committee of the takeover regulation panel. I was the chair of the finance committee. I joined Africa Check in the past 2 years. Voluntary, very important work. They've done incredible work, and so there's a lot of disinformation in the past 10 years that's very intentional, that we all need to take a lot more notice of. So I thought this is incredible work. Let me join that organization in the same similar vein. Yeah, so I was doing all these things, and I thought, the next level now, the big ticket for me would be one listed appointment. And I'd seen the charter director thing, and I'd spent a year chairing an audit committee, and I felt more confident. And I can't describe to you how it felt the first time someone said to me, morning chair. I first looked around and was like, and it lit a fire in my belly, and it gave me what I needed just to go through the process. So last year I put together my application, quite stringent because they have a certified director, then a chartered director. Then I thought, I've got the experience to go straight for the CDSA, and I went through the process, and I just got my certification probably about 3 weeks ago. And in the past 6 months, I lost my sister to COVID. I'm a guardian mom. A lot of things that have happened. But it was so important to me because I think we buried my sister. Then I wrote the exam 2 weeks later. I didn't want to postpone it because I think I'd only write in September. I was like, I want to get it out the way. I given myself a year to do this, and I need to qualify by July. And by the grace of God, that actually did happen.
You qualified in July. Congratulations. Congratulations, Madam Chair and Chartered Director. That's really amazing, Tami. I'm going to open up the questions to the floor. Does anybody just lift your hand, or you can just pop up your video, and then you can go ahead and ask questions. Any questions, guys? Okay, we've got Lucia.
Hi, ladies. I'm sorry, my video is going to be off. Unfortunately, the connectivity is awful where I currently am. Thank you, Tami. That was very informative, especially where you were telling us pretty much your entire career. It was very interesting to hear your background. A question that I do have, though, is other than the advice that you've already given to us, which very, very helpful, by the way, is there any additional advice that you might give to young ladies? By young, I mean like under the age of 30. At the moment, I'm 29 myself. So what kind of advice would you give to young women who are trying to get into the board directorship space, who don't necessarily have the sort of gilded qualifications that you might have, or maybe other people might have? What are some of the additional sort of things that they should look out for, things that they should probably start doing? Because naturally, they're not going to land super paying board seats now very early in their career. But what can you recommend for maybe the first 5 years of them being within the board space and building their name?
Sure. So I think what Lara said, a good place to start is, what is your everyday work? What attracts you to corporate governance? And have that quite clear in your head. And then, if it's not a natural fit, so I hear what you say about the gilded qualifications. People do like the engineers, the accountants, and it can get, quite an exclusive club. So, you focus on who your industry is, and getting to know how their corporate governance structure works, because you're already an expert in that industry. Now you take it to the next level and you understand how their corporate governance typically works. Who are your funders? How do they make revenue in your industry? What is your part in that? Are you a cost? Where do you fit in the organization? And then understand its own structure. Does your company have financials? Go download them if they're freely available. Start getting to know who's on your board. The company that you work on, who is on the board. Look them up on LinkedIn. What do they do? Connect with them, and then go to exactly what we're doing right now. You guys are already there. Then you do your various certifications. And I think, like my lady said, if then this organization connects you with people who need your skills, that's the most natural fit. But you must know that you're going to put in the time. It took me 10 years to, and I still don't have my listed, right? I just had to get ready for when it does happen.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Sia. Thank you, Manko. You can go ahead.
Thank you, ladies. Good day, ladies. Thank you so much, Tammy. This was really an eye-opening. I just wanted to ask you something. Currently, I'm already volunteering in an NGO board, and I just wanted to find out, because listening to your story, it seems like, you know, the preparation and everything that you have to do, they are quite important. But now what I need to ask is, what is the importance of asking the right questions during the board meetings? Because, you know, I think one has to prep themselves up to say, okay, fine, this is what I'm seeing, and prepare their questions. Is that something that one has to do, or what?
Very much so, Manko. If I can, I always keep a notebook by me. And I can tell I'll have it the date when the board meeting, when I open my pack to prep. So this is the TRP, the audit committee. I'll have my agenda. I'll make my own notes. What didn't quite make sense to me? What, you know, something they're going to go, that's the question you ask. But after you've done your homework, don't ask the stuff that's already in the pack, because then that shows you didn't prepare. Sometimes go refer to your last quarter if you don't remember something. So do as much work as you can so that your questions are intelligent and they provide insight to the organization, you know. Sometimes I've received inductions, sometimes not. It always helps when you do get someone who sits you through the organization and gives you the paperwork and how it works, and you can ask the questions. That is always helpful, and it's never too late to actually have that conversation. So if you're there and whoever the CEO is, ask him out for coffee, you know, get to know how he sees his organization. You have access to them. Who brings in the money? If it's an NGO, who does the fundraising? That's a very important function to the board. You want to make sure that that person's relatively happy, they're energized about their job, and they have the support they need, because it speaks to our sustainability as an organization. So you sort of focus on helping them prepare as best as possible, and that means you have to be prepared as best as possible.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ntombi. Ritavile, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Naledi. Tami, wow, I've really enjoyed the humor you've also injected in your story. I think you've had an awesome journey and really very inspiring. And yes, I think that you've been quite successful as well. And I really appreciate you sharing this afternoon with us. I wanted to find out from you, have you ever experienced bullying when you were sitting on a board, and how did you deal with it? I have the pleasure of also sitting on an NGO, and a couple of years ago there were a few incidents that really did leave a very bitter taste in one's mouth, in terms of saying, do I really want to sit here with these people? So do you find yourself, have you ever found yourself drawing alliances and then keeping to those, or did you just want to be your own person and just leave it like that?
I'm laughing because you're describing something that I didn't think I would find in the NGO space, right? So sometimes the passion translates as like pure insanity. You know, it was animal welfare, and people will take you to court over a line item they didn't quite agree with. You know, we had a national organization we reported to. We were the Western Cape, the founding organization. So there are a lot of egos involved in the process. And the end result is we got 3 days to issue us 30-day letters when we haven't complied with something. And half the board meeting was discussing these 30-day letters, and they started arriving with increasing irregularity that we started to sniff a coup coming. And that's exactly what happened. You know, once you get a few, because they're basically warnings, they can take over your board. And that's what happened. So they joined, and this is, as now I'm chair, I'm a newly elected chair, and I lose board members through, you know, some very, very opaque process, very personal to everybody involved. And I remember the gentleman who had been removed was Dr. Jin. Oh, shouldn't mention him. Ignore that. But he was also one of the only Africans on the board, and he was a vet, and I learned so much from him. I didn't even know there were Black vets in the first place, and who had been doing it for 30 years, and established, well respected in the industry. So that taught me something too. And he was unceremoniously removed, him and another older gentleman. And I remember we were all like enraged and shocked, because there's nothing wrong with the way we'd actually been running the organization. It was more power moves from, you know, because we wouldn't quite toe the line. And I remember then the new directors arrived from Joburg. We had to pay for it, and we were like, it's incredible, really. I've never been in so many antagonistic meetings in my life. On a Saturday morning, you wake up at 8 to go fight in a boardroom in Grassroots Park. And I was hungover, and I was like, tell me why are you not in your own bed, you know? But it was so important for me to fight for my colleagues, because I remember telling me, you guys arrived here, you removed our colleagues. It's in my first board meeting with them. I was like, first of all, you need to explain yourself. Those were our colleagues. They don't just get removed like children. Those are adults, respected professionals, and we need an explanation. And there was utter quiet across the room. That's when I first picked up my voice. And because I was like, everyone was being so polite. And I was like, no, man, we're going to close this meeting. And nobody said, like, what the F was this? You know, let's actually say it. Because, you know, English, you can hide behind so many things. And I don't have time for it. Just mean, who has the time to do just let's all, as politely as possible, as respectfully as possible, just say what the fucking problem is. And I remember then, this was like the fourth of the, so now I'm getting the petty, man, every little thing. And I was just like, I remember there was one, my patience was running so low. And this was something tiny in the paperwork, like an SOP document. And people were like stuck on it, and the meeting couldn't move. And I remember turning to the guy who was causing it, and I was like, are you really making a mountain out of this tiny, tiny molehill? Like, I looked him in the eye, and I was like, on a Thursday night, I'm freezing. It's 8:30. And this is what you're doing. Like, I was like, are you sure? He was shocked, because I was like, no, you don't get to disrespect everyone's time like this, because this is an ego trip. And that's when they knew that, okay, she's not here for games anymore. She's grown up. She's the chair. She's the chairman. But also the next time I see you, it wasn't personal. So then they also shout, hello, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. How was your flight? Blah, blah, because it wasn't personal. We just need to move the agenda forward. And that's an important lesson. These things aren't personal. Keep your personal relationships, but keep your integrity. It's the only thing you've got.
Thank you for sharing that. I know those antagonistic meetings that end up at 10 o'clock in the evening, and you're thinking, why am I sitting here? I've got kids. Yeah, but thank you for that. I'll take it, yeah.
Thank you, Tabile. Zazi, you can go ahead. Dobi, I've seen your hand.
Thanks, Naledi. Two things. The first one is, you mentioned your work that you've done with state-owned enterprises, and just from my background with working with those types of organizations, I wanted to find out how you dealt with the way that they sort of treat somebody that comes in that speaks English in a certain way, a Model C type of, because there tends to be that.
The guys with the twang.
Yeah, there's always like they treat you differently. That's the first one. And then on the piggyback of that one is if you could go into how you've handled instances where you felt imposter syndrome, I put in quotation marks. Thanks.
Yeah, both really good questions. So the first one's more a cultural thing, right? When I joined KPMG, it was the opposite. And this was in 2008 in Cape Town. Incredibly, quite still openly racist then. They've improved a lot in terms of just naked racism. And at lunch we used to sit, there was the black guys who would just naturally congregate. They might mix with the colored. And then there was the white girls table and the white boys over there. And obviously you gravitate to people who look like you. And then I realized, you know what? At this table, it's fun. We talk and we enjoy each other and we laugh. You know, it feels familiar. But I also realized that you're not going to get known just sitting at that table. You're going to be graded average. You know, that's literally how it was back in the day. If you weren't making sure that people know who you are, whether you're, because I wasn't the most technical audit. I hated that thing. Like, I was just there for the CA thing. I don't want to find trace things to balance sheet. I was like, I only started having fun in third year when I was a trainer and I was project managing the audit. Because like, that's my stuff. It's more people, it's more structure and process. You know, but I will never discount the power of making, it's sitting at a table, you know, sometimes there's day, like I'll go sit at the color table. Certain day I'll go sit with the white girls. Another day, you know, I'll go talk nonsense with the white boys. So I traveled. There was, people can intimidate you, but you don't have to show it, right? And back then there was a fake it till you make it thing. And that was literally my strategy. Don't want to lie. I was like, you know, be confident, look good, step into the room, talk to people. And it's shocking how many people are just scared to do that. And we all like, I'm, you know, it's not like this big extrovert. I have to gear up to be an extrovert. I like being by myself and reading my books, and I literally need a day to myself once a week if I'm to continue with all my roles effectively without interruption, or whether it's I'm just watching TV or I'm reading a book or I'm on Twitter I'm laughing at nonsense, you know, for a full day. I just need time to myself, which I prefer Sundays to gear up. So it's quite important to have a strong sense of self. And sometimes, I mean, remember there was in the conference, it was very boys, and these were sort of your Black Santan boys. And they all, you know, ignored me. I stepped up to this group and they're like, who are you? And they literally shoulder you out. And I was like, sure, okay. And then at that point, I always find another woman, you know, it doesn't matter what race she is. You just find another person, you talk to them, and you at usual exchange number, or send them at the next event. So I always gravitate to people who mostly I can relate to, and get to know them a bit better. I don't do the big scatter networking. I tried it in my 20s. It was very exhausting. So I try to get to know one or two people really, really well. And that gives you a place in not being easily intimidated, because even if someone's being antagonistic in a meeting, I don't have to meet them there. I'm just stating, you know, whatever I'm stating, I could be right, I could be wrong. I'm not married to the idea of being right or wrong. We just have to make the right decision. And then imposter syndrome, I mean, that rolls around. Like I say, if you're going to step up to the white boys table, there were comments, there was some outright racism once or twice. You're gonna get in a lump in your throat and you're gonna swallow it, and you're gonna put on your brave face and your big girl panties, and you're gonna fake it till you make it. And you're gonna do all your preparations so no one catches you slipping, right? You might not feel like, because I remember when I joined, especially the SOE board, you're the youngest in the room. Luckily, there was another young director who joined with me. That helped actually. But you can feel intimidated easily, and it's not anything that people do. Sometimes they try their best to get you. Just ignore it. There was one who were doing a little boys club in the corner. I don't care. I will go dish up food, make coffee, take out my notes. I'm not here for you. I'm here for the work. So I try not to take things personally. Remember my fiduciary duty and just do the work, man. Don't get caught up in the dramas. And try to shut up that like evil voice in your head. You know, like that evil voice in your head. Like that's your real enemy. Nobody else. It was like, what are you doing? You're not good enough. Get away. That's the person you want to actually be gentler to.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dami. I'm going to take the last question because we got 6 minutes over time. Dombi, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Naledi. Dami, condolences to the loss of your loved ones.
Thank you.
I'm so inspired. I've never been inspired by a younger woman. I can say I'm a matured. I'm 56 years of age.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine I'm learning, preparing from my retirement plan. Let me say my career beyond retirement. Because I believe I still got a lot to offer.
And you started at a good time. That's actually great. So this is part of your retirement plan, right?
Thank you. The wisdom that comes from you, I'm so inspired. I'm so inspired. I must tell you, God has blessed you with so much wisdom, and may He continue to do so. Tami, you have mentioned how you have been able to manage multitasking. What has helped you to do that? Because I've heard at one stage you represented yourself in different companies. What personal attributes have made you to be who you are? Because I regard you as a resilient person, as a determined person. How has that, which of those personal attributes have helped you? But also above all, because I was interested on the last question on how you have responded to it, you know, on how certain things we take for granted, you know, the cultural dynamics in an institution. How are you able to traverse them and be a better person and rise above them and focus on what you are there, the purpose for you to be there, serving? You mentioned a lot, which I like, about your fiduciary responsibilities. You focus on them. So I'm saying, and also what interests me as a younger person, how have you managed to balance your life? You know, there's a professional life, there's a personal life. I hear you having your me time, which I've tried for better part of my life, not being possible to have that me time. I can learn a lot from you on how to set time, but also if you can respond to those issues, can also respond on your experiences at IDT, being a government department entity. How have you managed to permeate within the political environment?
Thank you.
Okay. Naledi, you might have to help me just keep track, ne? So the first, how do I balance everything? Don't want to say luckily or not. So I've you know, people would call it selfish, but I've chosen not to engage motherhood until I felt like I had a partner who would truly support me in my ambition. I'm tired of explaining myself and excusing myself for my ambitions. And if I believed somebody could be with me without, because they did like, you emasculating me. I'm like, go cry, go home, go to your mother. I don't have time for those things. So unfortunately, because I've been like that since I was a child, I've always known my independence is so important to me. I've been fighting for it since I was 5. I started taking public transport by myself when I was 7. I got myself my first book on sex. I was 7. I took it out the library because I wanted to know what it was. Because in my community, it was this weird whispered thing. So, you know, that's who I am. I'm not afraid to go get information. And so in that way, I was blessed that I have a lot of time to myself, right? So I like to spend it. And 3 years ago, I used to give away my time needlessly, pouring it into worthless boyfriends, pouring all of my time and my love. And my God, what a bad investment. And so when a part of my healing, I had to look at my loved ones, my family. I love my nieces and nephews. I'm obsessed with them. My kids, they're my kids. They call me mommy. We do stuff when I'm in Joburg. I pick them up from school. We do a date, So I learned to actually appreciate people who already love me. I don't have to go find new people to love. I can just concentrate on the ones who love me already and love them really, really hard. So I could be a backup because, I say my sister, but our moms were sisters. So we're cousins, but they did everything together. They look alike. We were raised like twins. We look alike. And I wanted to give them that sense because they're in Joburg. They don't know how we were raised. My mom used to walk to each other's house, wear each other's clothes. And I wanted to give them a sense of that. And I was so happy, actually. That was such a blessing in my life. It was very grounding, and it happened as the takeover regulation panel was happening and things like that. So I found it very useful in just staying in the present moment and not freaking out, because it's quite easy to freak out. And you want to show like the kids in your family what's possible, right? You want them to dream a bit bigger because they have their anti-tummy. So I'm lucky in the sense that now I've never, this past 7 months, I've never worked so hard in my whole life. I was up at 4 a.m. when I had to study. We were doing valuations now for the largest asset manager in Africa. We were all up at 4 a.m. There was a Friday night about 2 months ago. I was in a call until midnight reviewing a report. And I was just like, is this me? Is this really happening to me right now? But that's the passion and dedication, you've got to give it your all. Because delivery is what I promise, you're going to deliver. You can give me the work, my team and I will deliver. So I had to get a bit more involved in making sure we get there and we do good work. So I'm not afraid of putting in the elbow grease and just doing what you gotta do. So sometimes it's quite exhausting. Board meetings will come at a time. So at my day job, I also prepare the board pack for my board. So I do all those things. I do the risk register for the group and blah, blah, blah. And there's times when everything will happen. There'll be 1-2 weeks where there's a lot of work I need to put out. And sometimes it's my fault. This thing of liking working under pressure, it's insane. So you'll see it's like every day I have a quadrant, it's weekly quadrant that I update about, what's urgent for me for the week, what's a priority, blah, 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 things long term. Then I'll move you up gradually. Block 1. There was stuff that was sitting there that, I leave it till the last minute and the pressure, but some part of me likes it. I don't know, maybe it reminds me of trying to qualify and doing late nights. So I am an early morning starter. I will do 4 a.m. and work rather than, sleep at study or work until 12. So you've got to know when your best operating time is. And that's for me at the crack of dawn, if I've got a lot of work to get out, and, just put in the hours and until you're ready and you can deliver a decent product. Naledi, did I miss one?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, you did. You answered all the questions, just the DTI one, but unfortunately, I can't let you finish that. I've got one more person who wants to ask a question, and then we've got to wrap up. So Desiree, you can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Kami. The question that I have for you is the one on SOE boards. How have you the political interference on SOEs. How have you experienced that? And I can see and tell from your presentation that you really are a strong person. How have you handled the political interference? And if maybe you can just share one experience with that. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Desiree. I'm lucky. I'm also quite discerning in the appointments I accept, right? So the institutions I'm involved with are very well run. The take care of a regulation panel is a self-sustaining entity. It's been around since the 80s. It's governed. It's created by the Companies Act, and all we have to do is be good custodians. So the process was quite independent. There are times when we need to write to the minister or the DPI to share information, and we do that through the chair, who manages that relationship. And then on the university side, it's a huge institution. Academia is a ginormous institution. And there are sometimes, I think our chair came under attack a few weeks ago from a group in the media, and they were a local political organization who had another agenda. And what I really liked about the way she dealt with it, she's also like me, very strong, cards open. And she actually mentored me in my chartered director, because she also is one in my road and making sure that I qualify at record time. She just addressed it in the meeting. I think, the best way to deal with things is just to put them as politely, because there's nothing more powerful than the truth. And people will spend time obfuscating that, and just cut things down to what they really are and say it, and then see where the cards may land. We had a situation where there was a very senior member who did something so unethical. I didn't believe he kept his job. But because everybody had been on the board for so long, and they had feelings about him, and I was like, what? He did what? And he's still here? And, they gave him a chance. And I knew it, because he would strike back again. He did something else wrong. And at that point, luckily, he resigned, and then we accepted it immediately, but he tried to take back the resignation. Because, you can get a sense of character. And I was like, there's something wrong here. This was so wrong on a fundamental level that he, we probably should have acted sooner. But there's a personal relationship, maybe he's a father. Nobody wants to be able to say, I lost someone's job. But I deeply believe you have to make a decent attempt at your own job. You have to try to save your own job. If we're going to get this country working, we have to be a bit more circumspect.
Thank you so much, Tami. Desiree, thank you so much. That was a very, very good question. I think it's a great way to end the session. Guys, personally, I could go on forever, and I'm sure the people on this call could sit and listen to you forever, Tami. Again, thank you so much for making time for us today. And just before I wrap up, I don't know if you have any last parting shots to the women who are on this call and the ones who will watch it in future.
I just wanted to congratulate you guys for taking this step. This is part of the commitment portion of building your own career. Just by being in the room, you've backed yourself tonight. And that's an important theme. As women, we need to back ourselves more. Society, especially Black women, we're culturally driven to assist everybody but ourselves. So we need to back ourselves more. And this is what I see in the room. People are making plans for their future, whether you want a secure future for a family, or you want a different stream of income, or you're just genuinely curious and passionate about this. you're making the steps to do it. You know, you're in the right rooms, and it will pay off in the long term. It will. And thank you so much, ladies. I don't know if it's got a chance, if I missed you, for listening to me on a Friday night. I genuinely can't believe you guys did it.
I know, right? I know. Who was it?
I'm very impressed.
Was it Jason Kanye West who said you could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here with us?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a rap song.
No, awesome. Thank you so much. So guys, just to wrap it up again, thank you so much for being here on a Friday. I know we ran over time. My apologies for that, but I think the session was really so informative and so effective for all. I know I got a lot for myself and my journey on becoming, you know, a director and a chair one day, like our wonderful Utami over here. But really, just to wrap up, just a few key points on what Utami spoke about, and really what came through for me. Like, what I do see is a lot of resilience. You know, someone who's extremely determined, who won't be dictated to by their circumstances, right? But someone who has faith in themselves, and their faith in God really has lifted them up to an incredible position. Be an expert in your field, guys. Be a huge expert in there. Know your financials. Know how that particular industry works. If you want to be appointed on boards that you maybe might not be familiar with, do know your financials, do your research, be a corporate governance expert. I think Directors Association drums that into each and everybody who's gone through the training. You might not be an industry expert, let's say if you are in finance, but maybe you're interested in sitting on media boards, like a multi-choice, you know, but be the very least you can be is be a corporate governance expert. Do the work, do your research, network. And I think the most crucial part I really got from it, I mean, I think a lot of women definitely need, is to not be shy, right? Put up your hand, go out there, network with the people. If you want to sit on a particular board, find who's on that board, find them on LinkedIn, you know, knock on the door, send them messages, but just really network. The mountain is not going to come to you. You have to go to the mountain, Moses. So we really, need to look at that. And certainly I think discerning the positions and the nominations you accept. I know many of us want to sit on boards, but I think, you know, we have to be very careful because, of course, being a director is not a light matter. You know, so Tami, thank you very much for that. We do have a director, excuse me, I'm saying a director. We do have a directory, right, of people who could be board members. So we now I nominate you as an ally for that. So if we know, okay, you know, there's an appointment here and we know you sit on that board, we're definitely going to come knocking on your door. And just maybe if you can share any of your not contact details, but on LinkedIn, where are you on social media? How can the ladies on the call reach out and contact you?
So LinkedIn is best. I'm coming Mulawa there. There's not a lot of us, so it should just be me. Yeah, let's get in contact. I'd love to assist. It will also help me build my own network, right? Yeah. So I'm always keen to collaborate.
Awesome.
That's how we get there.
Symbiotic. Awesome. Well, ladies, thank you so much. God bless each and every one of you. Tami, God bless you. Honestly, this is a seed you've sown into each and every one of us. And I'm sure we will water that seed and we will bring out, you know, amazing fruits. Thank you so much. God bless
and
you.
All the best to everybody on this call.
Thank you so much. Everyone enjoy your weekend, you know, have a drink or chill, watch whatever you want to do, but just enjoy your time. And yeah, let's be present in 2021. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
All the best.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, guys.